I won the Oscar competition this week.
I did terrible.
This is, I think, the first time I've ever won anything in my whole life.
Do you want us to take a moment to celebrate you?
Yes.
I usually always win the technical categories.
What, do you cheat?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just like obvious usually who's going to win best makeup.
Well, I just figured like Frankenstein. Like if you're making Frankenstein, you can't miss on the makeup.
Although they kind of did, didn't they?
Did they?
I don't know. I didn't like it.
You have opinions on like the makeup use in these movies?
No, on the film.
No, I have opinions on the makeup piece as well.
You do?
Yeah.
Is that what taste is?
This is it's reminding me of that meme of the guy holding a butterfly and saying, "Is this a butterfly?"
Welcome to People vs. Algorithms, where we connect the dots between technology, media, culture, increasingly money, because money makes everything go around in this world.
Morality, we connect the dots.
Morality, papal affairs, for instance. We might touch on the Pope later.
Religion, yes.
We have you do the Pope's Corner. The Pope's Nose, as we call it, yeah.
Just a couple of quick things before we get into it. I got a couple of things I want to speed run through.
Do you want to get off your chest, Brian?
Yes, I'm monitoring the situation about who is cooked. Each week, new people are cooked. This week, I learned that designers, I hate to say it, Alex, but designers are cooked. Google has a new AI design tool called Google Stitch.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people on Twitter, X, told me that designers are cooked. Unfortunately, CMOs are also cooked because someone like vibe coded an AI CMO that was completely laughable, and it was a 23-year-old's idea of what a CMO actually does, which is all around like tracking Reddit posts and whatnot.
And when we all know that what a CMO actually does is just go to parties.
No, they go to conferences, first of all.
That's true.
And that's offensive.
That host the parties.
So everyone seems to be cooked in AI. I noticed one of the things that is developing in this narrative is a lot of these titans are looking around the corner and they're trying to make an alliance with blue collar workers because they're saying that this is the great revenge of the blue collar and that they are going to wipe out the laptop class. But the people who will emerge victorious other than them are, the people who are doing physical world activities, manual labor. And I was thinking about this because I went to the dentist this week. Being a dentist is a great job. I would recommend people to go into dentistry.
They're not cooked?
They are not cooked at all. Nobody is going to trust a robot dentist anytime soon. New York Magazine had a What New Yorkers Make. And this is a little misleading. A lot of this is misleading because ultimately you got to just own your own business to make a good living. And this dentist makes $1.2 million from their practice in New York City. And you can still have, although PE has rolled up a lot of dentistry practices, you can still have your own independent, dentistry practice. Great living. I noticed when I was at the dentist, they used to have those inspirational posters on the ceiling of like a koala bear hanging on a branch saying, hang in there. And now it's just upsells for teeth whitening, Invisalign and all that stuff. I made a joke about it to the dental hygienist. She wasn't super into it, but I thought I could use it here. Anyway.
It's funny that not everybody understands your super insidery weirdo ad tech humor.
Yeah, we'll get to the ad tech humor later. Anyway, dentists, good. It's a good job. They're not cooked, not even tartare.
Alex, what I've decided is that Brian doesn't. I mean, we're useful props on this podcast. We're just here to like egg.
No, you guys don't prepare. If you're not involved in the preparation,
that's
if you're not involved
true.
in the preparation, I'm just gonna take control.
Well, I want to talk about something on that, like who's cooked, because I had the same experience this week about cooking, and it made me think about this I call them FTPs or FPTs rather, which are first principle thinkers.
Okay.
And all those, there's a lot of people like Travis Kalanick. He's a first principle thinker. Elon is obviously the preeminent first principle thinker. Chamath wants to be the world's greatest first principle thinker. these are people that we know these people, Alex, because they're all over your fine city. And
Oh yeah, some of them personally.
yeah, exactly.
What, Alex? What
is in your? Well, I mean, what is a?
You go to their dungeons. They come to your dungeons. What your dungeon? What? Or you might have multiple dungeons. I don't even know.
But they're having. Can I finish my rant on first principle thinking before you take over, Mister? They're having a field day, right? There's, and they're like, AI is smarter than people. They'll say things like theoretically pushing the cost of intelligence to zero. So therefore, all white collar people are superfluous and are cooked. And we will live in an age of abundance from, logical extension of our first principle thinking. And it's just not going to happen, guys. And it's such a confusing time because on one hand, if you log on to YouTube, you're hearing about the singularity. And then on the other hand, if you just go out with normal people, like I went to the physiotherapist, just like you went to the dentist, Brian. And obviously she's working with her hands and stuff. She's not, like the dentist isn't going to be replaced by AI. But I asked her, I'm like, it's tax day for LLCs in New York State. Did you do your taxes? And she said, I don't even think about that. My accountant does it. And it's like,
wait, she didn't vibe code a replacement to QuickBooks?
No. She should have made QuickBooks. That's the point, Alex, because her accountant does it and he might care about AI and she trusts him. And this is key. He is accountable, right? If he cares about AI, maybe he can double his client load at some point in time in the future. And maybe he can start adding, AI assisted value added services to help clients with the next generation of their challenges like efficiency and investments and other things. But the fact is that the accountant might take on more clients. There's going to be more independence because technology kind of allows the economy to fragment at the level of the proprietor. And, we're going to get this kind of absorption of AI where people change how they work. But it doesn't mean that my physiotherapist is going to get the robot to do her taxes. She's still going to get a guy, at least for the next 10 years. It's, this percolating through is going to take a long, long time. It's an absorption process. And it's not going to just be suddenly we did an exercise this week, folks. We did our vibe coding PvA thing. And we can talk about what we learned by building our own applications. But I'll tell you right now, based on my experiment this week, my physiotherapist is not vibe coding in her taxes. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what your project was, or Alex, do you have a note? Go ahead.
No,
Alex.
I mean, I think just before we go into the vibe into our projects, this week also saw the.
We all had projects.
It feels like fucking school, guys, and it's giving me PTSD.
Did you actually do it, Alex? That's great.
I had homework.
It's bringing me back to 6th grade. Did you drop out in 7th grade?
Just whatever the last year was. Google released Stitch, which is this design tool, and that's why Trey was saying designers are cooked. Look, I
was saying it.
No,
you were saying that.
I don't think designers are cooked, Alex.
I don't actually believe that. I was just
well, yeah, I know. It's that first principles Twitter's talk. I think a lot of these conversations ignore the fact. Think of a world that's actually surprisingly static, where nothing's going to change, and people are not even going to respond to the world changing and adapt their work to it, etc. On the design front, for example, isn't design about standing out? And if everybody has the same tools and looks the same, aren't you just going to start paying somebody to stand out? We know there are so many. It also ignores the fact that even today there are so many things that you could do yourself that you don't do, right?
Totally.
What are the fucking apps that are killing it right now? It's food delivery apps. Not only could you cook, you could also walk 2 blocks to pick up the food. People still don't do it.
Brian, you made the point. You said if your water heater was broken, you wouldn't fix it even if you could.
Exactly.
Well, no, I can't. So that makes you. My dad used to fix it, but I don't do that. But I agree with that. I mean, the fact that GoPuff exists in New York City tells me that we're gonna have jobs around everywhere. I mean, what is the point of living in New York City? I mean, there is a bodega on every corner, deli, whatever you want to call them. So there's no...
Guys, the folks making these predictions, first principle thinking isn't that smart. It's like cosplaying as like an inventor and having these hypothetical conversations.
But I have a theory about this, as I often do. I think some of this comes from, like, I've been reading, now I'm still slogging through this capitalism book, and we finally...
Jesus, it's been weeks.
Well, I know, but I read like 5 pages and then I fall asleep because this guy like gets into like literally how many bushels of like hay.
Sounds like a great way to
produced.
spend your time. Are you just using it as a sleep aid at this stage?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm into the Industrial Revolution, so things are really picking up. But the thing is that living through the Industrial Revolution, most people had no idea. They didn't wake up and were like, I can't believe this Industrial Revolution. They were just like going about their everyday lives, and a small number of them were directly impacted. For most people, the change was incredibly gradual. The world was remade very gradually. So there could be something here that we're in the same situation where the world is being slowly remade.
Of course.
But that we are saying, hey, our projects didn't work. Our lives haven't changed. The dentists are still the same, et cetera.
Right,
So
right.
That is a counter.
It's absorption.
I think that the conversation, it's more interesting for these people to have a conversation, to have predictions that are very broad and very kind of sweeping, right? Because it's easier to kind of walk away from them and they don't have to go into specific. But it also distracts from the fact that a lot of stuff will change, right? A lot of behaviors will change. Massive parts of the business are going to change, but it does remind us a little bit of the beginning of the internet when, you know, there were very huge predictions made that didn't come true or didn't come true as quickly as people thought. And the truth was actually very different. And yes, Amazon did end up disrupting a lot of stores and media companies did struggle, but, you know, 20 years in, you know, they're still hanging on.
I think first principle thinking is about power. It's about fake intellectualism, and it's about the shift of power to the technical elite. And it's like, if only you could think like we think.
Yeah.
If only you were as smart or rational, as sophisticated or technical as us, you could understand that this is a problem that can be solved. That first principle thinking suggests that the problem with rockets and getting to Mars is that rockets are disposable and you have to recycle them. That's first principle thinking. So on some level, it's valuable if you can kind of do the Elon thing and optimize a new system and create something remarkable. But in most cases, it's just arrogance.
It's 100% arrogance. It's endemic to Silicon Valley. The story, the thing I keep thinking of for some reason is like I was having a meal somewhere and there were these two young tech dudes talking. One had just gone on a kind of a trip across Asia, and he had a full description of how he would solve the issues in Myanmar from being there. Like
just a little FPT.
Yeah, just being like, you know, just having traveled there for, you know, traveled in the region for 2 weeks. He knew exactly how to solve it. And you hear that a lot. And I think it stems from first principle thinking is really cool and works really well when you're tackling a very specific problem. Like, hey, there's this thing we're doing and it wastes 10 minutes every day. Let's take a step back and figure out, like, is there a better way to do this? And I think that's like, it's a very kind of, technical way of looking at things. And it works very well when you're looking at a specific, you know, part of the production process or anything like that. When you start thinking about societal, you know, these guys start applying it to everything, right? All the way down to relationships and sex and dating and stuff like that, which is why they're absolute fucking psychos. Yeah, I don't listen to that.
Yeah, there was a psychopathic moment this week, and then we'll get into the Claude projects when Mark Andreessen, he pops up every now and again and does like several podcasts and then goes back to his library, I guess. And he popped up, there was this clip that was going around where he was saying introspection was just friction. You need to get rid of introspection. It's a modern invention that it's very suspicious. It's European, so it might be gay. It started in Vienna. All those weirdo psychiatrists in Vienna concocted this idea that humans should have introspection. And he has no time for it. He blows right by it because you got to have a bias to action. So
Because he's the Eggman.
yeah, it's gone. So what did you do in Claude? I admit my project, I have a feeling with your long preamble, Troy, your Claude project didn't go well. I'm not going to see you.
I had some problems, actually.
ClawCon Miami next week, where I got an invitation and I'm going to ClawCon Miami next week.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, I can tell you what I tried to make. It's not quite done yet, but I mean, you know that I like an aggregator, Brian.
Yeah.
And, even after, I guess it's like 15 years, I still use TechMeme and MediaGazer and Drudge. And I like news items from John Ellis. So I like when people can help me get the news a little more efficiently. My dream was, how could I build my own and build one that was, better suited to me, right? And I wanted it to go out and pull from all my sources, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, TechMeme. I wanted it to pull in the social stuff from X, from YouTube. I wanted to pull in my email newsletters. You can see I was maybe too ambitious. I should have built a micro app, which is what I came to at the end of it. But anyway, that I wanted it not just to be an aggregator, but a bit of an analyst, to look through it all and tell me what was important and then get smarter, but really just start with a better feed. And I also wanted to pull in like a little bit of information from financial markets so I could see if there were any major moves in sectors or stocks that I'm interested in. And then I asked it to, put it into buckets, AI, media, culture, synthesize it, but just like a smart RSS reader, but, much smarter. And I kind of did it. I kind of created a feed with little, bullets underneath of each of the items. I had a lot of trouble getting access to the content that I wanted. It's really hard to get at X. It's easier to get at YouTube. It was really hard to get into my email box, and I can explain that in a second. What I learned was the following. I could build a basic app. It's very cool and very empowering. I had to learn how to use new tools that I'm not accustomed to using. So I had to use the command line thing on my Mac. I had to use an IDE called Visual Studio, which is basically like a word processor for coding. I had to learn a little bit about Python. And the hardest part, strangely, is to me the last mile, which is how do you get API access and use the Google console, the cloud console. And I don't know, Alex, I'm sure you're good at this stuff, but the cloud console was beguiling to me. It was hard to figure out because I needed API access to my Gmail account because I wanted it to go through all my newsletters. And to do that, I had to light up the cloud and set up a bunch of shit, all those switches on there. And so I think it was really hard. I mean, it was really hard for me to figure out. I did get a page. It did summarize my news. I struggled with getting my email in there, and I'm going to keep. There's enough promise there for me to keep working on it because it's kind of addictive, and it's
what did
really
you use?
fun.
Did you use Cowork or did you use Claude Code?
I used Gemini, actually.
Gemini.
I used Gemini to write the code. I used Visual Studio as my IDE. I used Google Cloud to get access to my Gmail account, and I will use that to host it. I think those are the tools that I used. Does that make sense, Alex?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I don't know how Gemini is. I think Claude Code has been really good at building stuff. And
you know what I found? It was way slower. The Google was much faster. And that's kind of what I wanted. One other critical thing I noticed is that I could get lazy and try to write prompts in that were really vague and just kind of do this thing. I want this aggregator. And what I learned is the product design stage, which is essentially detailed prompting and workflow analysis, is kind of everything. And, if I could break up the task into smaller bits and be incredibly specific and really think through what I wanted and didn't want, the sort of the essence of product planning, which is what's important and what's not, I could, get to the outcome much better. So that's what I learned.
Okay.
great.
I went in a totally different direction. I didn't get as far. But it really more in a direction.
I got more time. I think I
would have thought you would. I would have thought you would have gone in this direction because I was I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I thought, lead gen. That's what I'm going to do. None of this other stuff. And so my man, CJ Gustafson, the proprietor of Mostly Metrics, has this CFO tech guide. I was like, this is brilliant. So every time you land on his newsletter, he asks you to do the CFO. He has a newsletter for CFOs, the CFO tech guide, which benchmark the tools that you use against the other CFOs in the network. And you fill out all what is your ERP, et cetera. And then you see like how your tools, your stack ranks against the others. And in the fine print, it's lead gen for his partners. I'm like, this is amazing. I want this.
So he's basically profiling all his readers and what technology they use.
Yeah, but then he's passing it on to his sponsors as lead gen. So the ERP gets and they know who they use and who, unbelievable.
What's an ERP? Some people don't know what an ERP is.
To the audio listeners, you should see Brian's face is just
very excited.
He's electric.
Yes. So maybe this was easier because I was like, I just said, rip this off. I said, make this, but make it for my audience. And instead of it being for CFOs, make it for product and audience development people and publishers. And here are the categories. It went through and did everything. And what was interesting to me is that...
So hold on. When you say it did everything, is this a landing page for someone who comes to an event?
It's just a landing page. It's just a landing page.
And it says, what CMS do you use?
Yeah, it says, what CMS do you use? What ESP do you use? What engagement tools do you use? And it filled in all the options. It wasn't perfect, right? But then this was the interesting thing is I didn't even...
How were you deploying the code?
Well, I didn't get to that part.
How did you know what...
someone?
That's like you changing the water heater. You get someone.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Why would I want to do that? I don't know.
Well, that was the nature of the exercise, is to build a thing.
Well, I mean, it is. So, okay. So next week I'll tell you if I can actually deploy the code. But what I was impressed with is that it inserted ad units. It after the CMS, it had a WordPress ad unit. It does know me. It knows my client base too. So I thought that was I can see why people like Gary Tan are like, oh my God, this is fire. At the same time, I can also see why people like us are like, why would I want to do this? Why wouldn't I just hire someone?
Yeah. I would I want to add something that I forgot is that me doing this is kind of a waste. And there's, there is a certain level of abstraction, meaning you don't have to write code. But there's so much that anybody that has spent any time developing would know how to do that I just was clueless about.
Yeah, but I think the expectation here is this first principle guys are saying, yeah, but it will get so good that all of that stuff will be solved. But the thing I always go back to as well is that even if I told you today you can hire 100 people to do anything you want, just managing those people takes time, telling them what to do, making sure that you like the thing that's being done. Being able to do stuff doesn't mean everyone is going to do it. That doesn't take away from the fact that there's massive disruption coming in the software space. Because I can give you kind of the more, I'm not an engineer, but the more technical side of playing with this. And I've done a few experiments and a cooking show, some of them I might have made earlier, but I can run you through. I think it can be pretty fun. One of them is
what did you make, Alex?
Well, one of them is a kind of a PSA, and also I wanted to figure this out for folks because a lot of people have been talking about OpenClaw, right? Do not install it on your computer, or don't buy a Mac Mini. Don't do it. Troy tried it; it didn't go well, and I think it not installing is probably the best case scenario for some people because it can become a security nightmare. That being said, talking about having other people do things for you. Places like DigitalOcean, which host servers, have a pretty 1 or 2 click install of an OpenClaw instance on a server that is relatively secure. And
is that what I should do instead of the Mac Mini?
100%.
My kid a Mac Mini.
This is the thing I keep telling her. So this is my theme here. Don't try to kind of raw dog those LLM and build your own apps. It is super fun. I build a Mac app that helps me test out little sounds. And it's very addictive to build a really nice polished Mac app. I build a video game prototype for an infinite tic-tac-toe game that I have.
Oh, Brian, you and I are like cavemen here.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, I know. I mean, I
Have
know.
you done anything in lead gen at all?
Yeah, that wasn't my first go-to. I was given the keys to the universe, and I did this.
Fine.
The thing that I wanted to kind of come to you guys with is that help is available. Troy, for example, one of the things that people should look at is Zapier. Zapier has been around for a while. It provides an easy way to do API connections to things. And Zapier has its own AI integration now, and it does things like Gmail. So you can go into Zapier and say, hey, I would like to pull stuff up from my email, put it into a spreadsheet, and da-da-da-da-da. Zapier will kind of set things up and have a visual interface.
Isn't it Zapier?
Zapier.
But Alex,
I don't know. I hear it.
Alex,
both ways.
thank you for that, and I'll go look at Zapier. And what was the other one? Ocean something?
DigitalOcean. But there's a lot of people hosting.
Well, what did you build, dude? What did you build, Alex? Can you show us?
Well, so I build websites. Works really well to build websites.
What did you build for the People versus Algorithms first inaugural vibe coding summit?
I built a tool that it doesn't work entirely yet. The last step is to
Forget what did you build, man?
A tool that allows me to ask a Slack agent to send a demo code of our game to a person, an email. So what I do is I say, hey, Slack, bot name, whatever, send a free code to this email. And
so wait, why are you sending those codes to those emails? This sounds like lead gen to me.
Well, it's kind of is actually. Jesus.
There you go. You guys are all the same. You guys are all the same. Silicon Valley runs on ad networks and lead gen.
Yeah, these are demo code through the beta of our game, and it's like they're hard to track. They're like in spreadsheets, and people have to go into the spreadsheet. But rather than that, I'd like to have a Slack bot, and I think like doing stuff via Slack bot is
it's marketing, Brian. Pure and simple. That's what
it is. It is 100% marketing, actually.
Marketing automation.
Fuck.
What?
All right. Well,
What?
that's it. It all goes back to that.
All
Everything turns into
that.
a crab or lead gen.
Okay, we will keep updating our progress on this, maybe not weekly. I just want to get onto a few other topics. One is Travis Kalanick, as is mentioned, is back. He's back in the limelight. He claims that this like ghost kitchen thing was actually a head fake, and his new company is about AI and robotics. But more importantly, at least to me, he's a great character. And he is back in the spotlight.
Well,
and I think the tech
connecting
world,
him to Oscars, Brian, he should win the award for the finest act of self-mythologizing.
yeah, because he has this story about how he got kicked out of Uber because of a coup that was led by, I think it was Bill Gurley, right? Who led that coup that decapitated him. And now he has been out in the wilderness. We love this. Rocky IV. This was a major plot line of Rocky IV. And now he's back in the ring. And I like Travis Kalanick as a character. He's on my Mount Rushmore of tech titans, which I can go through if you'd like.
Can I read you what one of the lines from that vision document on his website? He said, I bled, but I did not perish.
I know.
I got back up and fought my way back into the arena. Back to my calling, back to building.
This is amazing stuff.
Which website is that?
It's his. Yeah, no, it's his manifesto. Look, but
I
he's a
spent
great.
2 hours with him on a call to discuss ghost kitchens.
Well, that was just a head fake. He's on the Mount Rushmore. He's the hustler. He symbolizes to me the hustler ethos that is at the heart of Silicon Valley. He steamrolled over every regulator. The only thing that defeated Travis Kalanick was China. Basically, he tried to crack into the Chinese market, and he met his maker there. But I
when
think
you hear him on a podcast, Brian, he's like a dude trying to pick up women, like at the MIT theoretical physics mixer, pretending to be smart, but he's really just a dude.
Yeah, but
There's a very anti-Silicon Valley like fucking streak going on here. Like I feel like that fucking now anonymous bankers here. I've got like 3 East Coast. I feel like I should be defending my tech bros here.
Okay.
He's Los Angeles based, right?
He's LA now. He still has a place in the Castro, I think. But yeah, his take though on AI, like was interesting, no? I mean, isn't that why he's in the news?
Honestly, the reason that he's in, I don't have any idea what his company truly does. They've never produced a product. But like
they make
know of.
tractors drive in mines without people.
Okay. I mean, do they?
And
how much money do they make from this? How many have they deployed?
I don't know.
Okay. It's mostly from his
But
reputation.
don't they also own that restaurant software operating system called Otter?
Okay. Great.
And the one called Picnic? I mean, some of this
But I
sounds
think
like...
his main take, I think the interesting take was that there's this new kind of a group of people saying that in this AI revolution where the AI is supposedly going to take all the jobs, humans are going to be fine because it creates more opportunity for like actually the value for human beings to cover the last miles becomes really high, which is interesting. But it's also interesting coming from someone who kind of devalued the daily labor hours of people by, like creating a network gig app like Uber. But his take is interesting. As with everything, there's 20% truth in there, and you have to absorb everything and try to figure out your own path. But
well, it's the idea of software to atoms, and I think it's kind of interesting for sure. And it seems like a good investment thesis. But Brian, one of the things that's bothering me is who else is on your Mount Rushmore?
yes,
Oh, well, as you know, in my social cast, the top is a wizard. And right now, Dario Omadai is my
Hell yeah.
wizard.
Hell yeah.
He gets the top, the George Washington slot. Then there's the builder. That has to be an engineering mind. And unfortunately, Alex, that's Elon Musk. And then you can move on to the optimizer. Optimization is at the heart of the tech ethos. And that's Bezos. He's ultimately an optimizer. He's optimized supply chains, and he's trying to optimize the Washington Post, and he's failing at it because media is a screwed up business. And that is not as logical as optimizers. Like, let me finish, and then you can analyze, Alex. And then I've got the hustler being Travis Kalanick, and then finally the last slot is the marketer. And I'm going to have to go with a deceased one because everyone's just imitated him, and that's Steve Jobs. He is the ultimate product marketer. A lot of what we're seeing now with the kind of marketing that Silicon Valley is doing, we see with AI how much it misses that Jobsian touch because people hate it. I don't think Steve Jobs ever would have marketed it this way.
You know what?
Alex.
This is the best thing you've ever offered this community.
Yeah, although...
That was so good, Brian. You just won the Oscar for Best Rushmore. I'm not even going to try to compete with
Thank you.
I mean, I'm going to say this is like a boomerang.
Oh, I need another one because Trump is going up on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, but I think this is like a boomer-ass list. Like, I mean, I guess Mount Rushmore...
List.
I don't know, like Elon, yeah. I mean, there hasn't been anything new happen. I think...
Who's on yours? Who would you take off and put on, Alex?
I would put Neil Mohan. I keep talking about YouTube CEO Neil Mohan.
The double-click guy?
Who took someone else's innovation and optimized it?
Guys, have you seen where YouTube's gotten since then? Like,
no, he did a great job with DoubleClick too. I used to interview Neil Mohan like when she was just some like ad tech guy at DoubleClick. It's kind of funny.
I understand that, but he's been at YouTube for 10 years.
Alex's next pick is Jeff Green, Brian.
Oh yeah. What about the Trade Desk?
But guys, like there are people who are loud, and there are people who make shit happen. And he was chief product officer at YouTube, right, before becoming CEO.
Okay.
Like look at the trajectory of this fucking website in the last 10 years.
He didn't do the skippable ads though.
That was us.
And Susan, who preceded him, was a great.
100%, absolutely. But they don't get the attention.
Who else is going up on your Rushmore, Alex?
On my Mount Rushmore,
Chesney, you're going to put your old boss up?
No, I would need to think about that. That's maybe for a future episode. We should make a special episode and have AB.
I could do a Rushmore of every single category, but it's fine.
Let's do a Rushmore episode. AB's joined us.
AB, who's on your investment banker Rushmore?
I don't know.
Is there
I was going to ask you who's
Terry
on your
Kawaja? Which is Terry Kawaja the Teddy Roosevelt?
I don't know what. One of the interesting things with Travis is he mentioned like he's been building in stealth, but I think everybody knew. I think this is like a pretty masterful pivot, right? So
Yeah.
I think he went all in on the food delivery. he realized it's a horrible business and then started to add these other lines of business, but it hasn't been a like secret. Like I think everyone knew what he was doing for the last 5 years.
Apparently he made all his employees put stealth on their LinkedIn, like thousands of them.
What's funny to me about this is like Silicon Valley celebrates the pivot, but then when they pivot, they deny it was a pivot. And I just don't
it was
get
always
it.
intentional. I think the origin story is so. I would say that the thing about Silicon Valley, which is the same thing about art, and something they stole from art, which is like always make it look on purpose. Like stumble into it and make it look on purpose.
Just say we wandered into this area and we saw this other opportunity. I mean, at least I will give Mark Zuckerberg a lot of credit. The guy is so shameless with like just starting things, stopping things. They're going to cut like 20% of the people that they had just hired. Now they're going to they're just forgetting this metaverse stuff. Alex, I don't know how your AR goggles are doing, but they're like shutting down a lot of the metaverse. They changed the company's name. The best thing that came out of that was the company name.
But I was like always down on that strategy. It was crazy to think like that people would just want to spend their time online. Like if VR's been around for a while, it's a niche. People obviously
you were a little more behind it than that.
Yeah, this is very Silicon Valley.
Yeah, you're talking about pivots here.
No. Let me tell you what.
I always thought that. Meanwhile, Alex was wearing goggles on this podcast.
But I try. I have every single VR headset ever made, guys, because I make fucking video games, and I understand it.
I bled.
Oh, okay.
I bled, but I did not perish.
And now I started building. However, true story, they did headhunt me to join that team, and I said no. Right?
Oh, really?
Yes, because I always thought it was like a crazy idea to try to pivot the business into that, and I think that every time Zuckerberg tries to be creative, he doesn't look good. That's not his thing. Like
what kind of comp package would that have been?
Oh, a lot of money, guys.
Really?
Yeah.
We can get into the specifics.
I don't do this for the money. Troy knows that. That's how he got me.
Yeah.
Peanuts, and a pat on the back.
Can we do a couple things in media?
Sure.
Yeah. This is your podcast, Brian.
The Economist, and this just more evidence that media is actually very valuable, the right type of media. The Economist just sold a large stake in their business, about 27%, to a Canadian billionaire at like 27x earnings. Elite prestige media.
Not 27, but anyway.
Something
more
like that.
17, high teens.
17x. The elite media, prestige media, will always have a high value. And it's good to see an anonymous Canadian billionaire you must be proud of this, Troy.
He's the mortgage king, isn't he? Isn't he?
You make your money in some kind of grotesque area of the economy.
And filed personal bankruptcy in '84.
I love a comeback story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
So.
But he owns that Glass Lewis company, or he's the major shareholder, which helps major shareholders figure out how to vote. It's like a proxy voting company. So this is a nice accompanying asset to that, right? Tell people how to vote and then tell them how to think.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of there's that roofing company, Standard, that like invests in quasi prestige media assets. So, if you're at the top end of the media food chain with prestige and you have good parties, you will always attract.
Yeah, he'll get the good invites. But what I didn't appreciate, Brian, is he bought 27% from Lady Rothschild, $400 million, values the company at over $1 billion, right? Shareholders cannot have more than 20% of the voting rights. No single shareholder. So he can't really do anything with the company, though he has Class A shares, which could give him the ability, which will allow him to put someone on the board, and maybe he can inch the company in a new direction. But it is it's a trustee structure that makes it kind of difficult to get control of. But the other interesting thing is, did you know that they have 1.25 million subscribers?
Yes.
It's a very robust business. And
is it a robust business? They don't make much money.
Well,
they grow
they have 91%
3%
retention rate on those subs, Brian. It's pretty cool. and it trades at the same multiple as other elite media like the New York Times. It's valued at like, I don't know, what, $1,200 a sub or something like that. It's, as far as media goes, it's doing great.
No, this is, I think, like an ideal, platonic ideal of media, right? You have these billionaires and high profile people who are backing it, but are not in it to have it as a growth asset. I don't see the Economist being like growing 20% a year. It's just not happening. They can't screw it up. I mean, we see with Jeff Bezos, he's in control of that asset. I mean, I think it would have done better if he wasn't in control of the asset. They don't know these businesses. So take the party invites, take the prestige, and allow professionals to run it. That's what I say. Steady.
Who's on your media Mount Rushmore, by the way?
Oh, I need more time for that.
Okay.
But even if he owned 100%, he could install the management. But I think one of the things I've always been surprised.
Why do we want this guy to install the management?
No,
what
but I'm saying there's like a mirage.
Says that he would be a steward of this iconic, and I don't use that lightly, journalistic brand. And they have like a purpose. They have a charter. They were founded at the Corn Laws. Some Johnny-come-lately who was bankrupt back in the 80s should not take control of this kind of property.
But
I'm outraged.
My point is that even though some of these wealthy buyers desire to exert control, you can't do it on the editorial side because the writers will just revolt, right? Like you saw this with the Washington Post. So my point being is, even if he did have an ability to install management, he could put in someone on the business side, but you have to be mindful of how much direction you can have over the editorial side.
You can't change the Economist editorial approach. It is ingrained in it. It's not like tradition, and I find it's much more common with British publications. You look at the Guardian. The Guardian is a great asset, right? But it is run by the Scott Family Trust, okay? And it will always be run in that way. And that is why it was set up that way. And I think that is actually a very valuable feature of these media companies, because we have seen time and again that these billionaires, for all of their many skills in financializing all kinds of things in this economy and extracting unbelievable amount of rent from assets, are terrible at running these media businesses outside of Laurene Powell Jobs. Who's a good billionaire? Who is a billionaire who has run a media asset like successfully?
The Cox family, the Hearst family.
They're in the business. I'm talking about someone who comes from like roofing or what is this, Canadian mortgage guy? Like,
I mean, I think when you have enough money, you can decide like, do I want a yacht
what
or
you're good at.
Do I want the Economist
Trophy? So take the trophy, put it up on the mantle, tell your friends about it at the country club or whatnot, but don't screw it up.
I mean, didn't Laurene Powell Jobs do a good job?
That's what I said. She's the exception.
Oh, she was the exception. Yeah.
But from everything I know, like she allows the like professional managers to be professionals. Troy, you always stand up for the professional managerial class.
Yes.
You like the mandarins.
Agree.
BuzzFeed, the end is near for BuzzFeed. I know this is sad. This is sad stuff. They have substantial doubts about being a going concern. They have created a bit of an off-ramp with this, and they're going to become like an app studio that churns out different like fun little social apps. I think that there's a return to that. I've been using one lately, this Blackbird app. You check in at restaurants, you get discounts. It's like a loyalty club. I think there's some kind of crypto back in.
You mean like at TGI Fridays or just at?
No. It's all over Brooklyn. It's in a lot of Brooklyn restaurants. You check in. It's like a loyalty program for independent restaurants that aren't TGI Fridays.
So, okay, what's your take on the BuzzFeed thing? Like,
what I found interesting about it was, and I found it a little unbecoming, but maybe it was true, is CNBC wrote an article about this. There's not much to say about the end of the traffic era. BuzzFeed made a lot of bad bets. But what was really interesting to me was that Kenny Lehrer, who has been a backer of BuzzFeed from the start, and who was also, a backer of Huffington Post. And so he has a long history with Jonah Peretti, who is Chelsea Peretti's brother. Basically threw Jonah under the bus. He said they blew it. They had every opportunity to make this work, and they failed, which I thought was a little true, but it was a little gauche.
Hey, Brian, is the irony in this story that had they continued at BuzzFeed News, there might have been a future for the brand?
What I love this theory. Explain it. If
Well,
it was a money losing enterprise.
Yeah, because it was pre-subscription era, right? If BuzzFeed News was in fact an authoritative source of well-reported news for the next generation, could they have built, in the sort of Substack subscription era, a news business with real reporting that would have had a future rather than relying on a scale-driven ad property that was kind of like, what's the latest meme, which was BuzzFeed, which ultimately became a spiral, right? And that was unsavable. Like, what was the move to save it, right? Become a producer of videos on YouTube, become a creator network, lean more heavily into what they were doing on social. They did all that.
I think selling was the only way out,
Well,
I think that basically comes down to they blew it by not selling to Disney.
Yeah, but that's not
John
an answer,
Steinberg
right?
was
What
right.
would have
but
created a sustainable media business?
I mean, but
I don't
sometimes
know.
that's the only answer, dude. Like sometimes,
that's not
you know when
sustainable.
to
That's
sell.
just ripping someone else off.
No, it's knowing when to sell, right? You know when to sell.
I mean, HuffPo was like a woke piece of shit that ate itself. But
Well,
like,
easy. Okay.
no, and you're right though. Kenny Laird did
We
do
don't all get our
Jesus.
news from 4chan, dude.
piece of shit that ate itself. I mean, it's a little harsh. I mean, I didn't like the what time is the Super Bowl SEO stuff, but still.
All right, next topic.
I mean, I think the thing they shouldn't have done was the SPAC, right? Like that just completely, they probably have $10 million more of additional public reporting costs. And I don't think any of the employees are able to cash out, and they're just sort of stuck as this.
Well, the SPAC was a Hail Mary. It was a Hail Mary. So look, the fate of BuzzFeed was already sort of determined. It felt, I don't know, like at that
But
time.
you could have like Chapter 11, built something smaller, not have all that,
Right.
shit on your back.
Going public definitely hastened the fall. I don't know the capital structure of that business because they took in so much money. I assume long ago it was written to zero by its backers, but they had to get something out of it.
Right. If you look at all the things they drove by, I mean, early on, BuzzFeed was making better videos than anyone else on YouTube. Why could that not have been a business? A smaller business, admittedly, but why couldn't it have been a business? They were the best social publisher. Why could that not have been a business in the era of platforms? Right? They were the best at interactive storytelling. Why couldn't that be a business? They were, they had relatively speaking, I think they had a really well-respected news startup. Why couldn't that have been a business?
Yeah, a smaller business maybe, but a business. Yeah.
They owned Complex.
Okay, so you're on Kenny Laird's side.
I guess so.
You money guys are all the same.
For whatever reason, that it seemed like that the failed sale to Disney, or not selling, like a lot of I think the talent left. People saw that as the one chance to monetize, and then they had like as Troy talks about all these different initiatives, they had really talented people there, and a lot of them just picked up and left. And so
John hit the exits. There's
a lot of people that did. Yeah. A lot of people left. And so I think that probably as they've iterated into what they are today, they've lost a lot of talent. As like a B or C media company, I think it's probably pretty hard to attract talent.
Okay, one final thing on a totally different topic before Alex's hard stop, because I know he wants to weigh in on this.
Thank you.
We got to talk about ad tech a little bit, because Alex is an ad tech veteran, even though he likes to deny it. Have you guys been following this Trade Desk imbroglio? Like, the Trade Desk is a very interesting company that became sort of synonymous with independent ad tech. So ad tech as a category has been, fairly up and down, if not disastrous. But the outside of the massive walled garden ad platforms, Trade Desk made it, right? And they were the sort of, they were the DSP that emerged victorious, if you will. They've lost 56% of their value in the last year. And now they're in a war with various agency holding companies over who is actually the one who is untransparent and who is actually ripping off clients and publishers the most. And to me, this is a story of kind of the failures of the digital advertising ecosystem outside of the walled gardens. Because at the end of the day, the spaghetti wires, the spaghetti string that ties this thing together has left so much room for opacity, and so many people have found margin in that opacity to the point where nobody trusts the system, at least from what I see.
Hey, Brian, is it also a question of whether or not, what is the business of being a neutral platform outside of an inventory owner when Google's a platform for buying, but also, a supplier. Meta's a platform for buying, also a supplier. Amazon's a platform for buying, but also a supplier. And Trade Desk is trying to be the sort of, transparent middleman that stitches it all together without an ownership position.
So the pro case of that is that, and this is part of the back and forth, is from the Trade Desk perspective, they're doing this thing, open path, that is going to theoretically create more direct connections. Everyone complains about intermediaries. It's always the other intermediary, I notice, not them as an intermediary, and that they're taking too much value out of a transaction. And again, I go back to the people with the boats and can are not publishers. They're not media companies for sure. They're always these middlemen who are taking some little bite on a dollar as it moves its way through the digital ad ecosystem.
That's not true, actually. The people that spend money in can are Google.
Outside of the beach, I'm talking about the yachts.
Oh, the little guys on the side that have to rent a yacht because they can't afford a place in the expensive hotels?
I have nothing to add, and I
it's
have
better
to go.
than publishers. Publishers have houses that are actually like apartments, like on a side street. So
yeah, where
I
they
guess it's all
stay as
relative.
well, so they defer hotel costs.
Exactly. There's a shower in the bathroom when you go in.
Catch you guys later.
All right.
Bye.
See you, Alex. AB, do you track that at all?
Part of this discussion, you have to recognize that there's like an underbelly of the internet with a lot of fake traffic, right?
And
Bot traffic.
underbelly. The whole internet is an underbelly.
Even when when you look at email opens, there's that whole statistic about how many emails are opened by people's spam filters to check if it's real, to test the links. Like, I think part of what happens with the Trade Desk, there's a massive lawsuit with Google AdWords right now where people that did paid advertising for like the last 10 years can go back and get a rebate of, they don't know the right percentage right now, but it could be up to 15 to 20% of your total ad spend. So I'm not defending the Trade Desk or Google, but I just think it's not as clean. We think of it in the digital world as like, oh, everything should be trackable and easy to measure. But I think sometimes there's a little bit of a gray area. And the other problem too is like, for the Trade Desk or Google, there's nothing to benefit them besides just giving the client or whomever their customer is like the output. What is your ROAS? What is your targeting, like that? And so I think in the middle, people probably take a bit more margin than they should. I think this happens all over the place.
Big picture here for people that don't care about the details of this, Brian. I think this is what happened. He won the DSP game. He went public, nosebleed valuations. Outside of the platforms, Trade Desk owned the open web, added audio and CTV on there, did a good job putting data to work for marketers. Jeff was the proud leader of it, and the market is now bringing the stock back down, along with, I would say, the prospects of the open web, which seem kind of worse than they ever have been. And, Jeff is like, we have a great business here, and I'm going to put $150 million of my own money in to show you how much I believe in the stock. Wall Street's wrong. Amazon's DSP sucks.
Ad Exchanger too. He blamed Ad Exchanger. When you're blaming Ad Exchanger
Adweek
and Adweek for your stock performance, you're losing.
And he kind of went Trump.
losing.
He went kind of Trumpian on him. He said, "I bled, but I did not perish."
I'm sorry. If your company is at risk from Ad Exchanger, you got problems. You just do.
Okay.
Should we talk a little bit culture? I want to talk just a little bit of culture from the Oscars. I watched the Oscars. I said I went to an Oscars party, which I usually don't do, but I made an exception. It was a good party. Man, I haven't watched the Oscars in a while. This thing is tired. The Hollywood model is really struggling. We had pharma ads, cruise ads, there was two separate anti-phone segments I noticed, because Hollywood knows that like people are distracted. They made jokes about people being distracted on the phone, so you have to repeat the script lines. They showed how the classics would look on a phone, cutting it off and everything, and it was all very nostalgic for a past that simply isn't coming back. One interesting note of that was...
wasn't it better when it was a platform for people's political point of views? Didn't it used to be way more of that?
Yeah, but they tried to tamp that down to like make it a little bit more palatable. There were a few shots in there.
Well, what's his name came out with a couple of buttons on his lapel and said "Free Palestine," and then
I guess I want to get like your temperature check for what you think about like the Oscars and what it says about the Hollywood model overall. The Hollywood model to me is big costs, big stars, big openings, big in culture, and the problem is they're losing to thousands of small fries and lots of lower cost bases. Nobody's shooting in LA anymore. It's a ghost town. You can't get work. The Hollywood has always been fuel. You see the stars, but underneath that is like it's a big industry. And everything I read, it's really dire.
Yeah, didn't that graph you post suggest, which we'll put in the newsletter, was that Hollywood is down, shoot days are down like 45% or something? It was really dire. I don't know. I'm of two minds about it. Like, great, media to the people, but on the other hand, first of all, I think Conan is kind of brilliant, and I really like him, and I loved the opening of the Oscars. I thought it was really well done, and you really felt him in the little interludes, like it was his show. It got bad quick. Like, I thought that the show was, it started off strong and wasn't particularly good at the end. I'm a big fan of film, and I thought there were a lot of good films this year. So I hope that people can still, keep making great films, and I think they will. I think they'll always make good movies. I do worry that the kind of, pressure on the ecosystem where, a lot of money is assembled to make a nice piece of art that people, spend money on the weekends at a movie theater is going to mean that we don't get as much good stuff. But on the other hand, I kind of have faith that, with, new tools and a new generation, and people always have something to say, and there's lots of great ideas in the world, that people will find ways to make entertainment that we love. So I don't know. I think the award show it feels a little bit like it's run its course. We'll see what happens next year when YouTube has at it and can maybe make it, a little more interesting. Wouldn't it be great if we could all vote? There was more participation. I mean, we can bet on, on the death of the Ayatollah. Why can't we bet on which is the best movie?
So 2 notes on that. One, if you stayed tuned, they actually had a post-credit scene. And the post-credit scene was Conan. It was a twist on the, what was that movie that won Best? I actually saw that movie.
One Battle After Another.
One Battle After Another, where Conan was like, oh, you're going to be host for life and whatnot. But he was replaced by Mr. Beast. And I think that was like also like a little bit of a symbol of like how this is changing. It's going over to YouTube, and it's like, ha, ha, ha. Now it's going to be hosted by Mr. Beast. Wait, is it? Another thing that I thought stood out was your boy Timothée Chalamet. Are we talking Timothy Chalamet? He's in hot water. I don't know if you've seen this, but like he's in hot water because he took a shot at ballet and opera. Because Timmy wants to be like a big star. He wants to make big movies. He wants to be a big star. He's in a rush. And I think it symbolizes, he said, I don't want film to become like ballet or opera. And he was, any gaffe is when you accidentally tell the truth, right? And this really got a lot of people. It's like, you can't say that about ballet. And to be fair, you shouldn't take shots at ballerinas. Like, they all have like stress fractures, super tough, very athletic people. But I think the reaction to it indicates to me how Hollywood overall is caught between this. Do we go deeper into the craft, or do we try to compete on the sort of Mr. Beast level in this like crazy decentralized media ecosystem? And Timothée Chalamet is a very modern star, I think. Like, the amount of marketing that he did for that Marty Supreme was really off off the hook. And I think that is why he's getting this backlash, actually, because I don't think like he's being a star like they want him to be a star. So they're not going to give him any awards for a while because they're going to like, and that's the old
he got the
approach.
too big for your britches discount.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I see some of the content my kids share. So with me, I shared one on the group chat this week about the sending the Irish back to Ireland, and which is
That was funny.
surreal piece of content. It has the vocabulary of someone who was raised on the internet, and it's very bizarre. I think that I don't really understand how the internet native generation thinks about the world, and I certainly suspect that they think the Oscars are ridiculous, even if they like a good movie.
Okay.
And there's probably a ratio of how many. I was looking back at some of the winners from like the 90s, and all those movies. And I bet if you ask people if they knew half, like 75% of the movies that were up for awards this year, they wouldn't know them. So there's like no point to tune in.
But that's been a long-standing issue. And I don't know, I go back and forth because award shows should like be about pushing a craft forward, and they historically are. For instance, like in Cannes Lions, fine, it's like a far, more crass and commercial. The things that are being awarded are not the massive campaigns. Many of them are just like, even scams from Brazil and whatnot. But they're supposed to be symbols of like what the craft can be.
But so this is 1995. It's Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction. It's movies that everybody probably watched going into the award show.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. I mean, there's like...
Let's just, the thing we should be thankful for is if you go through the list of best pictures, a lot of good movies, guys. Begonia was great.
I didn't like Begonia.
Sinners
I stopped watching it.
Hamnet was great. Frankenstein's too long. Marty Supreme was a great movie. F1 was just pure entertainment. Secret Agent, I haven't seen it. Can't wait to see it. Sentimental Value, great Norwegian movie. Like, great stuff. People make movies.
Okay, great Norwegian movie. You're proving AB's point.
There is one interesting thing.
AB
though,
won this one.
If movie makers lean into AI more, not to do everything, but to reduce the friction to move to production, the production costs, things like that, as they can lean deeper into their craft because it will cost less to make movies. You can make movies quicker. I think most directors and filmmakers always have like this project in mind they want to make and the studios won't do it. And if they leverage technology, they can hopefully... Yeah.
Brian, I'll come back to the theme of the episode. I bled, but I did not perish.
Yeah. The caterers are going to get compressed. They usually put out some like crazy spreads. Like I see them and when, I don't know if they still shoot as much in New York, but also probably too expensive. But like the catering is usually top notch on there. They don't just put out like stale croissants.
All right. Where are we going next, big boss?
I think we're going right into good product.
Right into good product. I hope I don't let you guys down. Each week you got to try to find something. Sometimes things don't hit you, but one thing I do like is, certainly YouTube TV did smash the, slow to innovate, cable providers with their, crappy hardware and crappy software. I can't watch news anymore. And it's actually, I don't know, maybe this isn't the right place to admit it, but the only one I can watch occasionally is Fox News. But the rest of it is just, it's just so doesn't make sense.
What's your Fox News program of choice? Is it Gutfeld?
Just when I want a late night kind of war update. But what I've been doing on YouTube TV is I do a 4 newscast split screen, and the split screen functionality on YouTube TV is great. It's a good product. And I have a really big TV so I can run Fox, MS Now, CNN, and BBC all at one time. And, when the pharma ads come, I can move away. And when the baby talk is on, I can go to, over to something else and watch, Fox yuck it up. And I think that's a great product. But the real good product of the week came from our little vibe coding exercise, Brian, because, I think that whole exercise says something about OpenAI and Anthropic. And Anthropic made the strategic decision early to focus on, I think we look at it wrong when we categorize it as just B2B. It's like focus on the real first killer use case, which is development. But development isn't like development was before, because now the marketplace for developers is kind of everybody who wants to make something. And we're quickly getting to a place where you can build, a micro app or a little utility for your home or your business. And it's pretty easy. Now, we're not there yet because the deployment of it and a lot of the environments that you have to make this stuff in is really Byzantine still. And it's like home plumbing when you've never plumbed before. Ultimately, you're going to make a lot of mistakes that maybe you don't realize at first. But, the idea that the market, the TAM is way, way broader, I think is what's happening and was a killer insight and is one of the reasons that people think Claude is cool now. But the other one closely related to this, and again, I don't really think that these things kill the tradesperson in the category, but they do change their role. And this new Google Stitch thing is pretty wild. And yet, most good interface now, the stuff that, would have traditionally come out of platform companies is commoditized by this, right? Everybody can do it now. And what is really interesting about it ties to what we talked about last week, which is the funnel guy who can vibe code his way into a really sophisticated marketing funnel and do the work of 10 people. Google, the thing with this Stitch is there's a component of it called design.md, which is this agent readable design system, basically design as code. And you can move from your Stitch file to the kind of, the templates, the coded templates, all the way back to having, integration with, your tracking analytics and anything you need to kind of really make it into a serious piece of technology. So it's it totally streamlines, the process from, requirements to system design to development, and really means that one person can kind of be intimately involved or leading that process from beginning to end, from PRD to design to code. And that's pretty crazy.
It is. I think the one thing with that is because I've been talking with my preferred designer about this, and we're sort of at an impasse because I look at non-AI native design. I respect the craft and everything like that, but I'm this is where I think the impact will be. I'm I need to get 10x more out of this project. We're doing the exact same thing as we would have been doing 10 years ago. That just doesn't seem like it makes sense at all. I understand a good design and that it's valuable and whatnot, but to me, the answer is a professional who has these skills and that taste and all of that using these tools. I don't want to design myself. I don't want to be a designer. I respect the fact that people go to design school and are better.
But a lot of design is just utility. And when it's just utility, then it can be just good design, right? It can be good.
Well, that's the thing. It's spitting that out. I had a PowerPoint deck that had to be used in a webinar, right? And it didn't look right. It just wasn't correct, right? And my thing was always that should be done by AI. But those are the tasks that are going to be taken over by AI. And when we talk about it's not going to replace X and Y and Z, that's all true. It's on the high end. And the reality is a lot of the tasks that people are doing are the deck for the webinar and stuff. That stuff can now be done by AI. And I think we sort of underestimate maybe sometimes how much of the work that stuff is.
Yeah, totally. I want to highlight one other thing that I think, there's a bit of schizophrenia in what I'm saying, because on one hand, I'm well, my physio's account isn't going to be replaced next week by AI. And on the other hand, I couldn't configure my Google console to get access to my Gmail. Okay. Just go with me for a sec. And I had Gemini running in one window on my computer, telling me what to do in the console. So I had to keep going back and forth between two tabs. And that to me, I just said to Gemini, can't you just look at the screen and tell me what to do? But it couldn't do that. And I asked it, what do you suggest? Because this feels colossally inefficient to me. And it said, well, you got a couple choices. One is you can just read and go look at what I'm telling you, or you can open up Gemini on your phone, press the squiggle button, point it at your monitor, and have it walk through the interface with you in real time with your camera, and you can just talk to it. So I had this bizarre thing going yesterday where I had Gemini writing code in one tab, and the other one I had my iPhone in my hand, focused at on the monitor, telling me what buttons to press in the Google console and just talking me through it. Pretty wild.
Yeah, I want someone else to be doing that.
Well, but it was you made me do this exercise.
Okay. I think basically at the end of this, we're just going to pay less for a lot of stuff. And that's going to have like a lot. We're going to get more for less. And the unfortunate just the reality of that is if you're on the provider side, you need to produce more for less.
Yeah, and I wonder what more means ultimately if you just take it down, if you do a little first principle thinking on it. Because at some point, to the, people that are, well-fed and safe and have, the things they need more, how much can the human absorb? More isn't just about more, it's about more meaning, and it's about better community, and it's about, relationships, and it's about things that AI can't really give you, right? They can't.
No, I just
wonder what happens.
I went the PowerPoint deck.
Things get
the webinar,
better and better and better, and we can no longer absorb that efficiency and where the world goes. So then we start cutting back the amount of time that we work, and I just wonder how it all kind of plays out in the longer term. Because what we're saying essentially is when the accountant has more time, they can help you with investments or efficiency or whatever. But as the AI does more and more and more, we get more. And at some point, we're going to just have more time.
Woohoo.
What are you going to do with all that time, Brian? You're going to watch?
I don't know. I don't believe that we're just going to have
Norwegian drama.
We're not going to have all this extra time. Every single piece of data that is coming out is that these AI tools are going to lead to just doing more work. That is just the reality of it. Productivity does not replace work with leisure. We do not have, we do, I guess, have more leisure time now than we did before, but we're not going to be working 4 days a week. That's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. We're going to have fewer people, and we're seeing this right now. My belief is companies are going to do a burn the boat situation with AI. They're going to make massive job cuts to force AI adoption because they have to. And because too much money has gone in this. OpenAI is focused on the enterprise now. I don't hear anything about AGI, by the way. That's weird. This is where Anthropic is making its money. The only way that it's going to get widespread adoption in companies is if they whack a bunch of people and tell the left behind people, you're going to make a little bit more money, but you're going to use these tools to do all the work that your former colleagues did. That's my prediction.
Is this an application?
An
application of Jevons paradox?
And then it's not going to work. That's what's going to happen. And then they're going to hire back those people. And then because of what's going on in the Middle East.
And then here we go.
The Emiratis are going to pull their funding because these are not full commitments. They're going to learn about force majeure. And then we're going to have a collapse in the economy. And then they're going to fire the people that they brought back. And we're just going to go through economic depression. And we're going to point fingers at each other.
It's turning into a Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, it's funny. A couple things. First of all, I always confuse Jevons paradox, Jevons, with that Elton John song, Levon. You know that? No?
No.
Written by Bernie Taupin? No? Levon?
I want to bring in AB. Why is this theory Tucker Carlson?
No, that was just a lot of catastrophic things happen. I think it's going to take a lot longer for them to fire people and then to have them come back and the Saudis pull the money out. So in this OpenAI scaling back its ambitions with all these different products and Google really leveling up with its AI capabilities, because you've seen in the last week some reporting, Walmart's inclusion of ChatGPT hasn't led to good conversions and things like that. And basically people are saying, this isn't going to work. I just view that as an optimization problem. They haven't figured out how to display the links correctly to the customers to get them to buy products. But I think what it says, if Google and Anthropic are sort of winning this AI race, and Google obviously has the corporate stuff already installed and they have this massive consumer base and consumer products, is that this whole world of paid spend around search will continue to live on because they're the best at it, right? And they're not going to sort of kill that sacred cow. Like they're going to, and they've already done this with AI Max, a bunch of different AI products where they're helping brands advertise in the different AI experiences. So I think, to me, when OpenAI was playing around with advertising, I didn't know where it would go because it seemed like last year Google was losing some market share, but that has sort of all flipped. And if Google is 1 or 2 in the AI race, they're going to keep advertising front and center. Like that's how they make all their money.
I agree. One of the things that I thought we didn't touch on, maybe we can end on this optimistic note, the idea of corporate loyalty to their employees and kind of like the idea of like a lifetime relationship with a corporation is so far gone, where Meta's hiring and kind of employee practices are they're almost like free agency. And it's like you can't depend on your employer for anything. The amount of up and down in their workforce, depending on kind of the whims of management at Meta, is really incredible.
Yeah, and it seems like it's the norm. Like they don't pay a price for this.
It's the norm. And now I remember it was only 4 or 5 years ago where it was a shame. It was shameful when corporations laid off people. Now they're rewarded for it.
The stock market is always like a good layoff, right? Right, AB?
Well, wasn't it the whole GE thing where they would lay off like the shitty 5% every year? Wasn't that part of?
Chainsaw Al Dunlop was a character of the 1980s. Scott Paper, he like turned it around by like whacking people left and right.
Yeah, but if you look at the history of Meta's workforce over the last 4 years, it's really a story of like up and down of thousands of people. It's crazy.
It will be interesting to see if there's some employment contract where you get to pull the ChatGPT or the Claude memory when you move, because like that's going to be more and more valuable, right? You're not going to want to leave that behind.
But they're also, again, this might be Tucker Carlson. I don't know. I have seen that they're also basically employees are training the AIs to replace them. I mean, it's like really kind of sick. Even in like Hollywood, a lot of out of work people are feeding these like models because they need the expertise. I don't know. As I said, I'm only 25% through this capitalism book, but I believe that this is the way this story is going to end.
In tears.
Capital always wins. It's just the reality. That's my big takeaway.
Do you ever have Al Jazeera, Troy, on your lineup of news?
No, I don't. Should I put it in with the split screen?
I don't know.
It's a different
I feel like they
POV.
probably have some of the best
POV?
content right now.
Yeah. Al Jazeera does? I'm going to check it out.
So much of this is gated, right? I mean, Israel is blocking all the videos. Like, I feel like we're getting war through like a very tinted lens right now.
Well, that is something like the war, tracking this war through the information space has been fascinating. You have the White House doing meme accounts. The Pope has come out against treating war like video games, and like literally they're doing video game trailers. The Iranians have a good propaganda operation going on. There was rumors that like Netanyahu was killed, and he had 6 fingers and whatnot. I don't know if this leads to a return to institutional media, but then on the other hand, on the institutional media side, I kind of feel like they're holding back on a lot of stuff because ultimately they're institutional media, and like government is a big institution. And Bill Clinton said, good luck trying to control the internet. It's like nailing Jello to a wall. China proved that was not wrong. They have these internet blockouts. I have no idea what's going on inside of Iran right now. I don't know if you guys feel like you do. I consume a lot of media. No clue.
The only things I get are from my Iranian friends.
Can I do one product real quick?
Go ahead.
So Airtable, which is like this, it's effectively like a better powered Google Sheet or an Excel document. They coded like an agent product called Super Agent. And so you could sign up and get beta access. So I got the invite. The most interesting thing about it, because Airtable is like a 1,000-person company, is that the CEO of Airtable was like the person sending it. Like maybe it's a dummy email, but effectively, I think as things start to move faster, things are getting broken, is like some of these CEOs are leaning in like ways they never would have before. So they basically created this side project called Super Agent. It's free for the first couple months. And you can effectively like, he's like, send me your feedback. Like, I want to make this better. And so it's interesting to see even a big company like that is starting to move back to that ethos of like move fast and break things, because you wouldn't normally see that from especially like a big company like Airtable.
They're right in the middle of the SaaS apocalypse. So
you know what
that
else he
comes to
said?
mind.
You know what else he said, AB? He said, I bled, but I did not perish.
I bled. SaaS is bleeding, but they will not perish. My money is on SaaS. The SaaS, people who say that like people are going to vibe code like their CRMs, they're not going to vibe code their CRMs. It's just they're just going to pay for outcomes instead of seat licenses. And that just changes the business model. SaaS was always a scam to some degree. I mean, the fact that David Sachs was involved tells me everything I need to know. PandaDoc, they keep whacking me for more money just because someone needs to sign a contract. DocuSign has like thousands of employees.
Is this how we're going to end, on a personal grievance?
I mean, give me a break. We talked about Zapier. I needed to add some kind of automation, and they whack me for another like $30 a month. Nobody's going to cry when these companies get compressed. I'm sorry.
You know
I'm
what,
going to enjoy
Brian?
the SaaS apocalypse,
Last
except
night-
for any of my clients.
I went to a roller rink in Brooklyn called Xanadu.
Great name.
Yeah. And people were in there, doing the loops and doing backwards skating and the cross leg thing and dancing and skating.
Did they do the hokey pokey?
Yeah, I suppose. And that was a nice break from vibe coding.
I used to go to Young's Regency to roller skate. They would have
Can you skate backwards?
No, that was like next level. They would have couple skate.
Yeah, I'm going to
skate.
do that with Jillian.
And then they did the hokey pokey. You gathered in a circle and you did the hokey pokey. It's very wholesome childhood. You missed this stuff, didn't you, AB?
No, we had that. I mean, when they would always
You did?
do those like competitions for like the free drink tickets, it's like the kids whose parents owned the skating ring, I felt like came out and won them. So it was like this rigged game.
I didn't go to skate, though. I went because someone was going to do their product launch party there and they wanted me to see it.
I was very nervous to ask a girl to skate if they were in the couple skate. And then I remember this actually stuck with me. I was very nervous. And, like you're skating around a lot. After we skated in the couple skate, I thought it went okay. I was a little Frankensteinish. I guess I was sweating a little bit. She wiped her hand off. Bad side.
That's it for this episode of People vs. Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Okay.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Did it.
Bye.